Inside Winning Strategies, the New Business of Sport. I have with me Oliver Weisberg, CEO of Blue Pool Capital, just taking a sip of water now, and Marc Lasry, Chairman and CEO of Avenue Capital. Now, the sports industry, $2.3 trillion, shaped by numerous forces, new ownership models, exploding media rights, athlete-led brands, data-driven performance, and evolving fan economics. Now, together with our two panelists today, we're going to be exploring winning investment strategies in the business of sport. Marc is known as a pioneer in credit investing and former co-owner of the NBA Milwaukee Bucks, now with a dedicated sports fund. Ollie is CEO at an investment firm where he manages the firm's sports investment. Now, BPC, Blue Pool Capital, just raised $1 billion at the weekend for its first PE fund. He is a minority owner of the NBA's Brooklyn Nets, WNBA New York Liberty, and NFL Miami Dolphins teams. So we're going to get the discussion started here, and if I could put the first question to Marc. Could you summarize your sports investment thesis in one sentence?
Oh, okay, one sentence. We try to buy assets or invest in teams that we think everybody wants to be a part of, to play, and we think we're able to invest in these teams at today pretty low valuations.
Ollie.
One sentence?
One, yeah, try.
You could take two. Take two.
Okay, so similar to my partner Marc, we believe that sports presents one of the most interesting investment opportunities today. Sports does a few things. Sports, we believe, is an interesting way and a great way to diversify, to invest in that asset class. As Marc said, to seize the opportunity to invest and generate long-term compounded risk-adjusted returns. I think sports also similarly has a way of really creating strong people-to-people exchange. I think this conference today, the events this week are really about bringing people together. That's the ethos of Milken. I know this is more than one sentence, but my father's a pedantic law professor, so forgive me.
It's five.
So there's, of course, owning a sports team and then investing in sports, and we want to get into that. I'd like to know, there's a common thread here. You previously a controlling owner of an NBA team, and you have, of course,
My partner's the controlling owner.
Yes.
Exactly.
So NBA, we'll start with basketball. How and why did you get involved in the NBA?
I think every Jewish kid wants to play in the NBA, and you can't, just because you're not tall enough or big enough. So you decide to buy a team.
Well, Marc, wait, time out. You played in college, right?
Yeah,
Let's
right.
not be
It was
too
a
humble.
little, it was
okay?
a little college.
Okay.
No, I think part of it is the NBA, in my opinion, globally is the second most watched league. Soccer would be number one. And at the time, I thought it was a bit undervalued. And what's actually interesting, today it's still undervalued, right? And so the idea of investing in a team, we did in Milwaukee because, believe it or not, 12 years ago when I bought the team, we paid the most that anybody had ever paid for a team. We paid $500 million. Today, teams are going for $5 billion or $10 billion. So, and they're, I think you're going to vote on it over the next couple of days. The NBA is going to expand. And those teams, the view is they're going to go for somewhere between $6-7 billion, maybe $10 billion a team. That's telling you that there's still a huge amount of growth. So for me, basketball, I thought that was where the opportunity was going to be, and it turned out to be right.
So you owned it for a number of years. You bought in for $500 million, and you sold it for
$3.5 billion.
So that was a good investment. So
It was
why
a good day.
why
It
did
was a
you?
good day.
Why
But
did
also,
you choose to get
he
out?
also won the championship. Well,
I know, I don't want to bring it up. Yeah, we won the NBA championship. The reason why I sold is at the time, I thought I'd put the team in trust for my kids. And my kids shockingly wanted to have the money. So we ended up doing that. The question was, look, I think if you hold on to it, it'll be worth more in 5 years. Their view was they would rather have the cash today than in 5 years. And somebody goes, yeah. You would have been one of my kids. There you go. So yes, that's why we did it.
Ollie, owning versus investing.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Look, I think I have to give credit to my partner, Joe Tsai. He's the main owner, I'm the minority owner, and we have the Koch family that have come in too. I think, he really deserves the credit for thinking through, should we buy a basketball team? It's been an incredible journey for me, my family, my children. I think sports assets are a unique animal. We look at them with a financial lens, but sports assets are community assets. And so you take a very long-term view. It's like running a public company. And so part of the reason Marc has been successful raising his sports fund is because the sports funds allow investors to get financial exposure to owning teams, but not actually have to do the work of controlling the team, which is like running a public company. I can share with you from my own experience, it's like a public company every day. And so I think sports teams are incredibly unique, but when you manage and invest them, you have to take an extreme. I know a lot of investors say they are long-term. In sports, it's extremely long-term, and the decisions you make day to day, if you think about what happened during COVID, when, as folks know, let's take the internet and the tech companies out, but most businesses can't survive with no revenue, right? And so people weren't really going to games at the beginning of COVID. But teams had to think through, how do we take care of our hourly workers? And so that was an issue that we thought about. We paid them, which was the right thing to do from a community perspective. So I think that gives you a sense, but the flip side is before people were going to work, they were going to basketball games. And so it gives you a sense of the power of sport. So
when you look at your investment in the Brooklyn Nets, and you've held this team, managed this team for a number of years, how do you decide when it's time to get out, move on?
Yeah, look, I think like any asset, you have to think about, your own balance sheet, diversification. I think the Brooklyn Nets, we also view as a family asset. So I think it's something we plan to own for the rest of our lives. So.
Marc, how do you choose between making money and winning? How do you manage the trade-off when you're in the owner's chair?
It's a great question. I mean, the problem is, and Ollie will testify to this, when you buy into a team, so it's different, I think, when I was controlling the Bucks, you end up saying, okay, I want to make money. And then the minute you own a team, you quickly come to the realization, no, I actually want to win. And winning means you've got to spend money, so you spend pretty much all the money you make so that you can win. And the idea is that over time, the value of that asset's going to go up. I think the hard part is you've got, I think for us in the fund, we're much more focused on how we're making money, right? So we're trying to buy into teams and assets where we think we're buying cheap, and then we'll end up selling that stake. I think it's hard because ultimately the controlling owner just wants to win. And winning means you're spending money. So that's always the challenge. And I think you saw that, and you see it with the Nets, and you see it with the Dolphins. It's, do you want to win or do you want to make money?
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned basketball, Emily, but the sports leagues are all of different shapes and sizes. Basketball has some unique aspects because it has the concept of luxury tax. Other asset classes like NFL have a hard cap. So I think Marc's point is a good one, that when you look at a traditional real estate asset or a private equity investment, you're pretty much focused on EBITDA and cash flow. And so for sports, asset value tends to be a more compelling way the way that typically people look at it. You make money on exit.
When you buy into a team, what are the first three things you look at beyond financials?
Well, I think first, the most important thing is it well run, right? It's actually kind of shocking. You find that the same thing that's important in business is the same thing that's important in sports, which is you've got to have a well-run management team. What's your focus? What are you going to be doing? And I think for us, and sort of what's the support within the community? Are people coming? Are people going to watch? What's the passion for that team or for that league? The financials, I think every team you look at, it's making a little, it's losing a little. The real big thing is what's the growth, what's the potential, and where is that going? And I think if we're comfortable with that, then we're going to end up investing.
Yeah, I think to supplement that, what I would say is if you look at, and this is somewhat circular because sports, and Mark will talk a bit more about this, has become an asset class. But I think as Mark said, sports is like any other media business. You need to have strong management, strong incentive plans, good culture, all those things you'd have at any business for what people run in the room. I think if you look at the explosion of new sports, whether it's sailing, professional bull riding, Mark can talk about these are leagues that either didn't exist before and so are new, and or for whatever reason, the owners didn't take a professional management approach. So that's why we think sports is actually a really interesting investment opportunity, because it's very easy to see where you can actually add value to generate more value for the team, more cash flow. I think we've seen through the ends of COVID in particular a secular shift and just more interest in live sports, which drives viewership, which drives media rights, which drives value. So that's like the circularity. And so I think that's where Mark and I have been looking at some of the newer leagues where we can take the learnings from the Bucks, the learnings from the Nets, and deploy those in those newer leagues and hopefully generate a strong return.
Think of it this way, like try to make it interactive. Who here watches, streams any shows, right? I think the vast majority, raise your hands, right? Everybody does. All right, who here records a game and watches it 3 months later? Raise your hand. One person. Okay. You should be ashamed of yourself. So think about that. The majority of the room is watching shows, not when they come out, but 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. And I don't know how many people are in this room. It seems like, 300. One person records. Like, the reason for that is because you got to watch it live and you've got to see it when it's happening. That's the beauty of sports. It's the one thing that people actually don't record and people need to watch.
And there's a lot of spoilers otherwise.
Yeah, somebody tells you the score, and then it's not that fun.
In 2019, when major U.S. sports leagues began to allow institutional investment, the NBA, the NHL, MLS, NFL, they allowed PE firms to purchase minority stakes. Mark, how did this change the investment landscape?
Well, I think it was a massive change because it turned it into an asset class. And I think as private equity came in, you've sort of seen the rise of values, but also you end up seeing everybody is now focused on it, saying, how do I make it more professional? How do I take an asset that's worth $1 and turn it into an asset that's worth 2 or 3? It's a little bit of what Ollie said. You now are going to make it more professional, and that, as it's become an asset class, you've got so much more capital coming in. I think for the first time now, the NBA is going to open up NBA Europe, and you're going to be able to have sovereign wealth funds, you're going to have corporations, but anybody can now buy a stake, whereas before you had to be an individual.
Yeah, I mean, just to supplement that, I think I keep using the term circularity here. So you have new investors coming in. That provides a few things, not just capital, but just oversight. And so you have institutionals you need to report back to. It's developing a certain level of transparency and involvement. And not just in sports, all the adjacent things, technology, food and beverage. A lot of NBA owners, the anchor tenant is the team. Like, for example, in Brooklyn, we have a few million people coming through Barclays Center. So we're looking at some real estate around. That playbook, everybody's doing. And so there's opportunities for, Mark owns a great company called Cosm, which you should talk about. And so I think that opens up a lot more interesting things to do adjacent to sports as well. And I think there's a massive interest in post-game, where you're eating, where you're spending time. And so I think, once again, creates more sports-adjacent activities. And as I said, in the circularity, there's more capital. Also, sports is the most under leveraged. There's very little leverage. And leverage is has good things and bad things, but Mark's been lending in soccer. So it's really interesting stuff to do.
You mentioned the Barclays Center. Where is the real value created? Is it on the court or in the surrounding ecosystem in the real estate?
Look, when you own, not every NBA owner owns their real estate. Okay, some of them are on long-term leases, and so we look at the ecosystem value jointly, really as one business. Okay, it's the food, the F&B, the tickets, the on-court experience, the concert business. And so we have a really talented CEO who's really looking at all of the ways to actually short-term and long-term monetize that, making investments in the building. We have a phenomenal fan experience. We get rated as really high. People have a great experience. They get greeted at the door. They meet the players. They have a great time. And so I think that ecosystem is really the power of the sports together.
Mark, talk about the ecosystem, maybe not just in the NBA, but in sports that you're exposed to.
Well, I think for us, if you take a look at sport-adjacent businesses, we own this company called Cosm. So I don't know, has anybody ever been there? Right. So it's like a mini sphere, and you feel like you're sitting courtside. So whether you're watching an NBA game, a football game, a soccer game, and it's this, to try to generate that fan experience. And company that we invested at $1 billion valuation, they're going out to raise money now around $1.5, $2 billion, literally a year later. Why? Because more people want to be part of that. So we end up investing, whether it's going to be in a team or a sport adjacent business. When with the Bucks, when we ended up building our new stadium, we ended up getting more acreage around the stadium where we built a hotel, we built restaurants. So we ended up owning all these different things. It's a little bit of what Ali is trying to do with Brooklyn, but you have all these businesses around, whether it's on the real estate side, whether it's on the fan experience, because people want to spend more time. And part of the reason for that is I think Ali and I grew up, if you sort of think about it, we worked 6 days a week and maybe you had Sundays off. You know, the younger generation shockingly does it a little differently. You know, they're going to work 4 days, and then Friday is your remote day, which means that's also your day off. All right? But they say they're working, they'll take one call so that everybody thinks they're doing something, right? And the reason you're laughing is because you know it's true. But think about that. What does that really mean? It means one thing. It means that the amount of leisure time has increased by 200 or 300%. That's a massive increase. That means you've got more time to watch sports, more time to do things. So whereas we had a 6-day work week,
Seven.
All right, 7. 7.5. No, but if you think about that, this generation has 4 days. That is a massive amount of extra time that you're spending, and I don't think people fully appreciate that. That's actually why you're seeing sports go through the roof, is because there's just more time that people are spending on it.
Yeah, if I can jump in on that. What you've seen is, you know, today people talk about basketball and soccer and hockey, but you know what we've seen, there's a lot of sports I didn't even know people are focused on. Professional bull riding, sailing, and so there's just, as I mentioned, a secular increase in sports, and not all the sports that we're talking about tonight. Yeah. And also, one thing we were going to talk about is just the tremendous growth in women's sports, which we should talk about too. Yeah. Yeah,
but if you think about that, like just on the women's sports side, we've invested in women's soccer, we've invested in WNBA, we've invested in soccer teams in Europe. So why is that? Because again, my generation, Ollie's generation, if you went to a game, you went with your dad. I have 2 sisters, he never brought them. Right? The idea that you would bring your daughter to a game didn't exist. Today, so, you know, for those of you who have children and they're young girls, you're going to bring them to a game. The idea that you're not bringing your daughter to a game is inconceivable today. So because of that, that's why you're seeing the rise in women's sports. And I'll give you a simple example. The NBA's media deal is about $7 billion a year. All right, what do you think women's basketball? So NBA average game is 1.5 million viewers. Women's basketball right now is about 1.2 million. How many people do you think, what do you think their media deal is? it's, even though the differential is 20%, their media deal today is 3%. It's not, it's 200 million relative to 7 billion. The growth is going to be exponential on the women's side, just as their deals come up. And it's because they did an older deal, and now as more and more people are watching it, you're going to end up having more upside on the women's side.
So would you be adding a women's team to your portfolio? Make the business case for a women's team.
Absolutely. We've invested in WNBA, we've invested in women's soccer, we've invested in women's soccer in Europe. So for us, that's where we're seeing a lot of growth. We're looking at women's volleyball. We're just looking at all these different things because women's sports, in my opinion, is just going to grow far faster than men's sports.
Agreed.
I want to talk about the superstar economics of this and managing the stars on your team. How much time goes into that? And when the Bucks won the championship in 2021, was that the pinnacle? That was the ultimate payday?
It was a phenomenal experience, and it was great for the value of the team.
Especially for the people sitting next to you.
Yeah, we were there.
When you beat us.
I know. They were ahead 2-0, but we won't talk.
We won't talk about that.
No, I think anybody who owns a team in any sport, the goal is to win the championship, right? So I think part of it is you do have to have a relationship with your players, and you've got to be able to sort of connect. And part of that, and I actually think Ollie and Joe have done a phenomenal job of that with the Nets. It's just hard because you've got, imagine being a 21-year-old kid and you're making like $50 million a year. And you've got to be able to talk to that person, and it's just kind of hard. And I think if you're able to do that, that's sort of why it goes to sort of culture and sort of strong leadership and strong management. If you're able to do that, you're going to find that you're going to be able to win. So that is the goal, I think, in any organization.
Yeah, and I would say, look, we've not had the pleasure of getting as far as Mr. Lasry, so FOMO is what I feel right now. But I think if you think about winning, it's about being good, having great chemistry, and being healthy. Healthy meaning not being injured.
Yep.
Because for people don't know, the players are playing 82 games a year is a lot, right? And so they get tired, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure they are healthy. And for the avoidance of doubt, basketball is a team sport. So I think getting all those things right comes from ownership, from culture, and obviously a little bit of luck helps. But I think
it's a lot of luck.
Yeah.
I mean, when we played the Nets the year we won the championship, you had 3 of the top 10, I would say.
Kevin, Kyrie, and
yeah,
James.
of the top 10 players in the league. Harden got hurt literally in the 3rd game, within the first minute. Kyrie Irving then ends up also getting hurt.
In Milwaukee.
In the 4th game. So by the time, we got to the end, we still had our whole team, and you had lost 2 of the 3 best players. So you do have to get lucky. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is. If you stay healthy in any sport, you're going to do well.
There isn't a day that goes by now that we don't talk about AI or use it. So where do you see artificial intelligence and data moving the needle on revenue?
I think it's very helpful. I think for us, what we were trying to do with the Bucks and what we're trying to do with teams today is you're sort of looking, all right, what can you use AI to help you, again, grow your fan engagement, make your front office better, make your back office better. There's just different things that you can use. It's happening more and more every day. So it was something that didn't exist 5 years ago, and I think teams are starting to use it more. But it's hard because part of it is you're trying to convince, you have to convince players to listen to them. I remember I would always tell Giannis, listen, we've done all these analytics. I know it's shocking, but you shouldn't take threes. You're not a good three-point shooter. And he would go, I know, but I need to do that. And you're like, no, you don't. And you try to explain to a player, you need to shoot you're far better on the right side than you are on the left side. And players will go, yes, I know, but everybody knows I'm going the right side, so I got to go on the left side. So you can see the answers, but now you've got to convince people to do that. It's just kind of hard.
Alibaba announced AI partnerships with the NBA in China to help boost fan engagement. As we all know, the NBA returned to China with 2 preseason games last October, and this coming October we'll be seeing the Dallas Mavericks and the Houston Rockets play in Macau. Now, I'd like to know, in terms of Asian interest in the sport, whether it be at the fan base or the investment into sport, are you seeing a pickup in this? I mean, Joe obviously being Asian, but Mark, what are you seeing in the Asian interest in sport?
Well, I went with Ali to Macau when the Nets played. Last fall, and they played the Mavs. I would tell you it was insane, the amount of interest. I mean, it was like the whole city had turned to come to the games. You went to the fan experiences. I mean, it seems that there is so much interest in it, and I think it's just going to keep on growing. But you were there as well.
Yeah, no, I think, thanks, Emily. I think it's a great question. I think we're all here in Hong Kong. Yeah, I think there has been continued interest from the Asian markets for Japan, for the NBA. I think they will continue to have it. It's not just China. It's Japan, Korea, India, Southeast Asia. As Mark just mentioned, last fall, and obviously credit to Patrick Dumont, the owner of the Mavericks, who's the president of the Sands, signed a 5-year deal with the league to bring games here. So I encourage all of you, come next fall. Obviously, we were last fall. I don't know when we're going to play again, but it's tremendous. And it's not just the game. The game sold out. But for people that went, it was a 5-day festival.
Yeah.
Fanatics had a playing card conference. I took a break from the meetings and the game to walk around Macau, and there's 25,000 people that were not at the game. They're doing watch parties. They're trading playing cards. They're buying merch. And so the interest in not just sports, this weekend is ComplexCon. A lot of the events going on this weekend. And look, I know we're going to run out of time, but I just want to make one comment, if it's okay. I'm just thrilled to be here. Mark's my business partner and friend. This is an incredible week for Hong Kong. Thank you for inviting me, Emily, to speak. I'm a Hong Kong citizen. I've been here for a long time, and between Milken's event, the Wealth for Good events over the next couple of days, thank you for all the people that came from overseas for coming. So.
And Mark, of course, you're coming here from the U.S. I want to get your take on the level of interest in Asian sports. I know you both have interest in AUBL, which is the Asian University Basketball League, and you can help tell the audience here what that's all about. And Jay Lee.
You can talk about that.
Yeah, no, look, we're really excited. The AUBL, which is a new collegiate league that we've started. We had our first event last summer. I'll encourage you, go online and join us next summer. I think there's tremendous interest in the domestic market in China, and we were really happy to make our first investment. Mark has joined us in the journey. So.
Yeah, we just think, look, there's a lot of growth out here in Asia and just around the world. And when you sort of look at it, I think I've been coming here for a long time. I think I've probably started coming to Hong Kong about 20 years ago. And when I look at sort of the growth and what's happening, especially here over the last 3 years, just coming to Hong Kong, feeling the energy, it's a great city. I mean, I love it. I think it's very different than New York. There's just huge upside here, so you want to be here.
Yeah, and I think also, we talked about this earlier, Emily, sport is just an incredible way for people to get together. It's also an incredible way to stay healthy. And so I think as Asia grows, I'm in China all the time, I think it's adoption of sport, adoption of health and wellness is also good for China. So.
We've got the last minute here, so I'll just give one last question to the both of you. If you could choose only one sport investment over the next decade, what sport would that be?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say to you, probably soccer right now.
Which country or which region?
Oh, I'm sorry, just which country? I would say in Europe.
Okay.
You know, if you're going to limit me to sort of a region, I would say it's either going to be soccer or it's going to be basketball. It's going to be one of those two. That's where you're going to see the greatest growth.
Okay.
NBA.
Men and women's.
Men's and women. NBA and WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a sport I know the most about. I'm very comfortable. The league, both the men and the women, is phenomenally well run. And I think, for people in the room here, real estate, private equity folks, sports is like any other business. The league is, the NBA and WNBA run extremely well. So.
Great stuff. I wish we had more time. We could just keep talking. But ladies and gentlemen, if you could help me to help thank Marc Lasry and Ollie Weisberg, thank you for your time and joining us today.